Okay, hello Year 8, welcome back to another lesson on Dickens. We're going to continue in the creative vein that we began last lesson, but before we get on to that, what can you remember about each of these characters' stories? The Marquis on the left, Oliver in the middle, and Stephen Blackpool on the right. Just write down as much as you can of their stories, as much as you can write down in 5 minutes. Today you're going to need just a pen and your exercise books, no extract today. Our learning objective is reimagining Dickens's work, and what we're actually going to do is rewrite a little bit of a Dickens plot. And here's the do now review, just to remind you. The Marquis is a French nobleman who treats the civilians of France poorly and cruelly. Oliver is an orphan who ends up in the city of London. He meets the artful Dodger and Fagin. They train him to be a pickpocket. And Stephen Blackpool was a worker in Bounderby's factory who refuses to spy on his fellow workers. He ends up getting fired for his refusal. And today is going to be mostly pretty much over to you. Remember your writing project? Well, we need some more writing for that. We're preparing a piece for your writing project. It will be based on reimaginings of Dickens' work. Now, I want you to, just to get us into the idea of it, you'll see what I mean in a minute when you've done this. I want you to imagine the Marquis helps the commoners. What happens? Remember that he'd come hurtling round the corner in his posh carriage all covered in gold with a team of horses out the front, and he'd run over a small child and killed this small child, and he really didn't care. You know, why don't you keep your children under control? And I think he gave him, you know, the equivalent of £5 or something, or francs, I guess it would be in France. But he was very high-handed and you know, not at all sympathetic to the fact that he'd just run over a child. But I want you to imagine the Marquis helps the commoners. What happens? Do a brainstorm. And here's some that I came up with. You know, it turns out that the Marquis has a long-lost brother whom he sees in the crowd. The story becomes more about family tensions than political ones. The Marquis decides to join the revolution, the French Revolution that is, and acts as a spy, because in his position he could go around finding all the aristocracy and you know, getting them killed. He ends up being captured and sees the errors of his ways. He'd be lucky to survive being captured, to be honest, but he is released and tries to persuade the king to see sense. The Marquis spots a beautiful woman in the crowd and falls in love. He abandons the monarchy for love. So just some ideas there, how it could have gone differently if the Marquis had decided that he was going to help the common people. You've got the hang of that now, so you need to create 2 more mind maps for the following scenarios. Imagine Stephen Blackpool helps Mr. Bounderby spy on the workers. What happens? And imagine Oliver arrives in London but doesn't meet the artful Dodger. What happens? Now your task for the rest of the lesson is to pick one of your ideas and transform it into a story. So I want at least a side of work from everybody, and you know, use your imaginations. I quite like the idea of the Marquis becoming on the side of the commoners, or yeah. So you pick one and write one, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing these. I love it when you write creatively. So do your best, give it your best shot, and upload this particular piece of work to Classcharts for me, and I will speak to you next time. Thank you, Year 8.